Good evening and welcome to our Parent Academy. What is SEL, Social Emotional Learning, and Mental Health? Please join me in welcoming our presenters, Ms. Martinez, School Social Worker, and Ms. Woodley, Social Work Intern. And now, Ms. Martinez, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Locuma. Ms. Locuma said already, my name is Laura Martinez. I'm the School Social Worker here at School District 150. This is my 20th year here. 25 years total experience all in the South Suburbs. And Ms. Woodley, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
So good evening, everybody. My name is Miss Woodley. I'm currently the school intern at McKinley Junior High. I'm in school at Chicago State. I'm actually finishing up receiving my professional education license for social work. I'm also a behavioral health therapist with Children's Home and Aid, where I work with Chicago Public School. I'm on the South Side, providing students with counseling. So yeah, I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
Thanks, Ms. Woodley. And I did get ahead of myself. I want to thank you all for attending too. I know it's very late in the school year, and I really appreciate the fact that you all are here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to learn what social emotional learning is. So the actual definition of social emotional learning is the process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, the attitude, and the skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, to set and achieve positive goals, to feel and show empathy for others, to establish and maintain positive relationships, and to make responsible decisions. So that's the actual definition of social emotional learning. So the next thing we're going to do is look at it in action and see why it's important in schools and in life in general.
You can't really hear it.
You can't hear it. I'm going to try again, okay? I'll try one more time. Thank you. Start back at the beginning.
What do you really want for your children? You want them to be happy, healthy, able to relate to other people, have the ability to set goals and to make good decisions. If we don't teach them in school, a lot of children are not getting these most basic, most important critical life skills.
Our children are begging us for the right to believe in themselves and the right to be inspired. The children are crying out and saying, I don't see purpose in my life. I don't have a dream anymore.
You make achievements, but you never get to the top.
It's like, okay, I'm gonna go to school, but what's the value if I'm not even going to be able to relate to anyone?
SEL is trying to bring a balance to the individual and what are the personal competencies you need to develop to be successful. How do you pull them all together so that kids can relate and navigate the world more effectively?
There's a great demand, and it's a growing demand. I think it comes from all kinds of sectors. It comes from the business world, who believes that the biggest skill problem we have is not technical skills, it's the ability to work together with others.
They want them to be collaborative, communicative, creative, be able to work in a group setting. And so for us, it's a huge part of that student's education.
We want for kids to embrace one another, to accept people for who they are, to know how to relate to one another, to know how to understand themselves.
It helps me have a happier brain and be more efficient.
Definitely straightened out my life. I can't even like pick where to begin. It just teaches you how just to be empathetic towards others and how to listen and I don't know, how to care.
It's really about developing those attitudes, skills, and knowledge that allows a student and an adult to achieve that, that approach to how they will work as a person.
We have the evidence, we know it works. We have the compelling argument that we need the whole child. I think it is our time to really capitalize on it.
We actually do have evidence now. We did not have it 15 years ago. I mean, to be fair, we were in the R&D phase in the field of social and emotional learning. We're not in that phase anymore. Content is more and more of a commodity. Children own what they want now at very young ages. They will become self-directed. They can find out the dates of the Civil War without learning it from a teacher. So the question that they're bringing to school is, who am I? How do I work with you? How do we build a team? What is our purpose? Where do I fit? That nurture children to believe that it's worth learning.
All right, I'm just going to pause it there. So we see from the video that it's really about relating and navigating in the world with others. We don't live in a bubble where we're just dealing with ourselves. We relate with others on a daily basis, whether it be at our jobs, grocery stores, phone calls you make to other people. Those are all things that we have to learn how to relate to other people. And you can also see that an investment in social emotional learning increases the positive social behaviors, and it decreases the conduct and behavior issues that we sometimes see in school. So here at School District 150, we follow the CASEL guidelines. CASEL stands for the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. Their mission is to help make evidence-based social emotional learning an integral part of education from pre-K through high school. They have 5 competence areas or themes that are interrelated areas of competence. And if you see within this circle here, within the wheel well, we start with self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. So our first area of competence is self-awareness. And that's the ability to understand one's own emotions, their thoughts and values, and how they influence behavior across contexts. It includes things like identifying emotions and having a growth mindset. This is really just understanding who we are as individuals. From that self-awareness, we're better able to see what we do well and identify areas of ourselves that might need improvement. Our next area is social awareness. This is the ability to understand the perspective of and empathize with others, including those from diverse backgrounds, cultures, and contexts. This includes showing concern for the feeling of others and demonstrating empathy and compassion. Social awareness really is the ability to step in someone else's shoes. It helps children interact with people that are different from them, and it teaches communication, collaboration, and understanding. These are the skills that are an important part of everyday life. Like I said, we don't live in a bubble where we don't interact with other people. These are necessary skills that everyone will need in life, in school as a child and as an adult. Our next area is self-management. And self-management really is the ability to manage your emotions, your thoughts, and your behaviors in different situations and to achieve goals and aspirations. This includes managing your emotions, exhibiting self-discipline, using planning and organizational skills. So this area of self-management really speaks to the idea of people being able to manage their thoughts, their feelings, and their actions. This can mean anything as simple as raising your hand and not blurting out an answer in class to something as complex as setting a long-term goal of picking a career and planning out all the steps needed to accomplish that goal. Our next area is relationship skills. Relationship skills are the ability to establish and maintain healthy and supportive relationships and to effectively navigate settings with diverse individuals and groups. This includes communicating effectively, demonstrating cultural competency, and standing up for the rights of others, to name a few. Sometimes when we think of the word relationships, we think of something more involved, like a best friend situation or a boyfriend-girlfriend type situation, but this really encompasses every relationship we have in life. For example, a teacher-student relationship or the relationship of working in small groups on a project. These skills, or lack thereof, carry over into how we function as adults. These are skills that are necessary for everyone of all ages. I like to think of them as life skills. And our last area is responsible decision-making. That's the ability to make caring and constructive choices about personal behavior and social interactions across diverse situations. This includes anticipating and evaluating the consequences of one's own actions, recognizing how critical thinking skills are useful. This is definitely a more complex competence or theme. It involves looking at every part of a problem and deciding what the best course of action is. It can be a student seeing bullying behavior and deciding to step in and help the victim by drawing him away from the bully, or it can mean something like, this problem is too big for me to handle, and involving a teacher or an adult. So this is really some more higher level thinking. As you can see, those 5 competence areas are something that are really important for students to learn, but it's something that carries over into everyday life for the rest of your life. I think they mentioned in the video, you can learn a lot of things from the internet, but these skills are really necessary. And if you don't have them, you're really going to struggle in life. Okay. Now we're going to see a quick video that shows us the impact and the importance of social emotional learning, as well as the data behind it.
I'm a data guy, I like numbers, and we have a lot of evidence that social emotional learning has made a difference.
We had a graduation rate of 62%. Last year, we put up a record-breaking 84%.
Over the last 5 years, our expulsions have been cut in half.
We were suspending about 13,000 days of out-of-school suspension. We were 10 times the average for any school district in Ohio. And within that first year alone, we were able to reduce our out-of-school suspensions by 55%.
Attendance rates went up. We know that attendance is directly correlated to academic improvement and achievement, but it also had other outcomes that were extremely important, which is students feeling more connected to schools, educators having to think outside the box, helping students overcome some of the challenges that are in their life.
There's an 11-to-1 return on investment. So for every dollar invested in programming around social emotional learning, we're seeing that they're saving $11 on remedial programs, dropout prevention. There's lots of reasons that people are coming to the conclusion that this is something that we need to be prioritizing.
All right, so that quick video from Castle really shows us, we see the data. We don't think it's just a good idea. We know that it's a good idea based on the data. We know that, an ounce of prevention, we have that 11-to-1 ratio. They talk about attendance, graduation, expulsion rates, etc. Our next slide. So these are our social emotional themes here at School District 150. We start with I want to say the easier competencies. So at the beginning of the year, we're in August and September, we're focusing on self-awareness. October and November, self-management. December and January, we're focusing on social awareness. February and March, we're focusing on relationship skills. And towards the end of the year, we're hitting that, just that more abstract area of responsible decision-making. So the curriculum we use here in the district, we call Suite 360. The Tier 1 intervention, meaning these are universal and done with all the student body. There are many components to Suite 360, but the most important to you right now probably are the student component and the parent component. We also have a Suite 360 staff, which is social emotional learning lessons for our staff. And then intervention and mental health. Intervention is usually used after disciplinary infractions, and mental health are really intensive mental health lessons. So like I said, the ones that you might be more familiar with and might be more important to you are the Suite 360 student and the Suite 360 parent. The Suite 360 student is a component that your child utilizes through weekly lessons, and they're all in digital format, even before we were in remote learning. These are computer-based programs, and they usually are about 30 minutes, and 4th and 5th grade receives those lessons through their homeroom teacher. And if we have any students from Greenwood, they also receive them in their homeroom. And any of the junior high kids, 6th, 7th, and 8th, they receive those lessons through their social studies class. And it's usually a weekly, about half an hour lesson. So we can take a look at a sample lesson here. So it usually starts off with a pretest. And it's just really really wants to know what you know before it teaches you. So you just follow through with the pretest. I'm just hitting any answer here so we can go to the next part. Okay, and then they have videos, this is a quick 2-minute video about everybody, how everyone is different. And the nice thing about that is the little microphone next to the text. If you click that, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear it. I can't even hear it now, but usually what happens is it'll read the whole text for you. So if your child has difficulty reading, it reads it all for you. And then it ends with a test. So usually the kids are able to answer the 3 questions. And if they for example, this is one of the questions, true or false. Tolerance means being fair towards other people's opinions or beliefs that may be different from their own. So you're able to navigate that. And like I said, it's usually only about half an hour. Very rarely is it ever more than half an hour. Suite 360 parent mirrors what your child is learning. So Suite 360 parent is for you as a parent to be able to know, okay, this week my child learned about bullying, and the lesson that you'll get will be a similar one that mirrors what your child learned in class. And it really just offers kind of a springboard for discussion for your child. And it also ends with resources and tips. So I can show you what that looks like. And just so you know, you have access to this, but the first thing you need to do is actually sign up for your own account. Your account is not already done for you. And these are the instructions for that. You'd have to go to https shsd360.org, and then your code is shsd360. And then you'd be able to enter your name and your password, and then you'd be able to you'd have your own account, and then you would be able to see what your child is learning on in that particular week. And I'll show you what a sample lesson looks like. This sample lesson is not a mirror of the student lesson that I showed you, but I did want to show it to you because it's a fairly new lesson that was put out at the beginning of this year. And the title of it is Tough Times, What to Expect as We Go Back to School. And it's talking about the pandemic, what you can do as a parent, how you can make your child feel safe, what we know, what we can do to prevent illness. And then, like I said, it ends with resources. So it's got videos about explaining coronavirus to kids and how to successfully learn online, and how to take care of yourself as well. And then here at the end of every one, there are resources that you can engage in afterwards. And this will all be accessible to you if you have if you have Canvas. You can look at my Canvas page and you can see I'll have this sheet up, which will tell you how you can, this little flyer, that'll let you know the exact specifics of how you can do your own account. All right, and then another program that we use at South Island School District 150 is called Centervention. And that's really a more intensive program that we don't use for all of the students. It's more of a tier 2 or a tier 3 intervention. And it is video game based, which is really nice. The kids almost don't know that they're really learning some stuff. They just love to play the games. So it really just depends on the grade level. So here we have grades K to 1 do Zoo Academy, grades 2 to 4 do Zoo U, grades 3 to 5 do SS Grin, and grades 6, 7, and 8 do Hall of Heroes. And Stories in Motion is social stories for children who are on the autism spectrum. So that's pretty nice. Okay, and the last slide that I wanted to share before handing it over to Ms. Woodley is this link to rogersbehavioralhealth.org. And that's really for tips for parenting during COVID. It just tells you what you can do, how to make your child feel a little safer. And this is just a really good website in general, not just in regards to COVID, but just it has a lot of mental health topics, and it gears it towards the parent and what you can do if you think that's an area of concern. So the website guides you on how to deal with these particularly trying times and how you can help your child. Says you can validate their feelings, answer their questions honestly, maintain structure, and encourage social connections where possible. Thankfully, it looks like we're seeing an end. We're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, but these are still really good resources for you to have. Like I said, they have topics about anxiety in school, general mental health, children and teens. So it's just a really nice resource to have. Next, I want to pass the baton over to Ms. Woodley, who's going to talk about some more serious issues such as mental health, self-harm, and suicide prevention and depression.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Martinez. So again, Ms. Martinez just spoke of, I'm going to discuss mental health and what can you do as parents if your child is experiencing any of these things I'm going to discuss. So in the first video, it's going to talk about self-harm. It's going to talk about what is actually self-harm and what are some things you can do as a parent. So let's go ahead and get into that first video.
Cutting, carving, poking, piercing, burning, and hitting. Self-harm isn't simply a pop feature of the latest teen angst film. It's a real struggle for lots of young adults. Hey folks, Lacey Green here for D News. Self-harm is the act of purposely injuring yourself, and it's more common than you might think. A study published in Pediatrics found that 7.6% of third graders self-harmed. That's 7-year-olds. And another study found that by the time they got into high school, 10% of girls and 6% of boys engage in purposeful self-injury. While there are certainly adults who self-injure, most are in their teens. It's a pretty upsetting picture. Maybe it's surprising to you, maybe not, especially if you spend time with teens, if you are a teen, or if you spend time on Tumblr. For the majority of folks who don't self-injure, it can be hard to understand why someone would do this to themselves. There are a few things that everyone should know. First off, it's not something that people do for attention. It's a manifestation of real underlying mental health problems that are usually not being addressed. Trivializing it keeps people ashamed and stops them from getting help. Self-harm is heavily correlated with depression, anxiety, drug abuse, bullying, problems at home, and an increased risk of suicide. But even though self-harmers are more likely to commit suicide, most don't want to die. They're not crazy. They're finding ways to cope with their pain. One of the main findings about why people self-injure is that it helps them to feel in control. Self Self-injury can also be an attempt to express intense feelings that they have no other outlet for. Self-injury may also be a way for someone to vent and release anger, to feel something if they're depressed and disconnected, to punish themselves, or even to calm themselves down. Because self-harm is caused by difficult inner struggles, if you know someone who self-harms, they may need the help of a counselor. If you go to school together, consider talking to your school counselor or another trustworthy adult in private about your concerns. You can also support your friend by being non-judgmental and trying to understand their perspective. Let them know that you're around to listen if they want someone to talk to. Accept what they're going through, let them know that you care about them, and help them find alternatives to hurting themselves. For instance, you could give them some rubber bands to wear on their wrist and snap instead of cutting. If you're the one who's self-injuring, you don't have to go through all of these complicated, overwhelming feelings alone. Reach out to someone you trust and talk to them. You won't feel this way forever. Eventually, things will start to get better. Thank you for joining me for this heavy but important topic, my friends. Subscribe for more DNews Science updates, and we'll be back with more videos soon.
Okay, before moving on to the next one, I wanted to highlight a couple of things that she mentioned in a video.
Hi everyone. Before we get into this episode, we wanted to tell you what's to come for anyone who may feel triggered by...
Sorry about that, Ms. Woodley.
No, I'm sorry. I wanted to highlight a couple of things. One of the main things that she said was not being judgmental, right? Letting your child come to you and you're not judging them for the actual act. Another thing I wanted to highlight is she mentioned that it's not about the act itself, right? It's some underlying issues as to why your child is doing that. So just keep that in mind. Go ahead. Now I want to talk about the self-harm cycle, right? I wanted to highlight that when they're dealing with self-harm, they're dealing with some type of emotional suffering. She gave some examples in the video. It can be caused by depression, anxiety, stress, parents' divorce, some type of mental health that they're experiencing. Then it goes into emotional overload. They have a panic, and then they actually do the act of self-harm, which gives them some type of control, right, and a temporary relief. And then they have grief. And then it just keeps going on and on. Go ahead. So what can you do as parents? How can you respond to self-harm? So like Ms. Martinez mentioned before, on this website, they give a lot of different information about mental health and what you can do from the parent perspective. So it talks about signs of self-harm, right? How can you respond? So the first one it talks about is a child dressing in a certain way. For example, since summer is coming up, if they tend to wear a lot of long sleeve shirts, they might be trying to cover up some areas they may be self-harming in. It talks about frequent isolation, meaning that they want to isolate themselves from their family, their friends. It talks about an increased guilt or shame or negative self-talk. Some examples of negative self-talk can consist of them talking down about themselves, calling themselves ugly, that they can't do anything. It also says unexplained cuts, bruises, secretive behavior, and then reluctant to participate in sports and activities that require certain clothing wear, which is what I explained in the beginning. So what can you do? How can you respond as parents? The first thing it mentions is staying calm, right? You want to be able to be in a calm state when they come to you. You respond, well, they respond how you respond to them. Also make sure you assure them that they are doing the right thing with coming to you and expressing this to them. And then lastly, you want to seek professional help. Like it's stated in the video, it's always an underlying issue as to why they're self-harming. So next, I'm going to talk about suicide. So suicide is the act of intentionally causing one's death. I wanted to highlight this graph because I wanted to highlight how suicide thoughts and attempts have increased since the pandemic. So as you can see in the graph, it talks about in 2008, it shows young adults being at 10%, and then all ages at 4%. And as you can see, it increased tremendously in August 2020 to 25%. and all ages at 11%, which I think is like a tremendous increase. In my opinion, I think that the increase can be caused due to not having the access to maybe socially interact with their peers. Being in a school environment probably has a big reason as to why this increased that much. So let's talk about some risk factors and some warning signs that you can look for if your child experiences suicidal attempts or thoughts. So some risk factors are depression. And depression can look like maybe an increase of sadness, right? Maybe they're wanting to isolate themselves more if they're experiencing depression, not wanting to be interested in certain activities that they normally be interested in. Another one is bullying. A big thing right now is social media, right? Social bullying. Even though they're not in the school building, I think that is the biggest thing right now is social media bullying. Another one is stressful life events such as divorce. Another thing is previous suicide attempts or childhood abuse, neglect, trauma. Some examples of trauma can be a loss of a loved one, police brutality, gun violence, gang violence. Those are all things considered trauma. Now we talked about risk factors. I wanted to highlight some protective factors. And protective factors are factors that decrease the likelihood of those risk factors, right? If we put these factors in place. The first one I want to talk about emotional self-regulation, right? That's the child being able to regulate their emotions in a positive way, whether they're learning different skill sets as deep breathing or learning how to calm down, just being able to self-regulate their emotions, good coping skills and problem-solving skills, supportive relationships. That means even relationships with their parents or even with their peers. And then also lastly, availability of physical and mental health. And that can be resources within that community, right? What are some mental health resources that you have in that community that they can take a part of? So lastly, some warning signs that you can look for is withdrawing from activities. That's like even isolating themselves from family and friends, sleeping too much or sleeping too little, aggressive behaviors. Lastly, visiting and calling people to say goodbye. Those are some warning signs you can look for. So now I wanted to highlight in this video, it talks about what can you do to prevent suicide? Like what are some suicide prevention tools?
So if you're a parent and you notice that your child or perhaps one of their friends is exhibiting warning signs for suicide, the question is really, what can you do about it? I think the most challenging part is to take the first step, and that's ask if they're okay. Is everything all right? Are they thinking about suicide? We sometimes don't ask that question because we're afraid of the answer. Sometimes we don't ask that question because we don't have a clue what to do if they say yes. But we need to ask, are they okay? But sometimes that has to be tied in with, why are we asking this question in the first place? Kids try to hide these things and make sure that we don't pick these things up and understand what's going on with them. And the challenge that we have as adults is to help them understand that, as well as they're doing of kind of masking their emotions, maybe their behavior has changed or something's different about them. So for example, a teacher in school who notices a student's got their head on the desk. What do you do about that? You can knock on the desk and say, hey, wake up, or you can say, hey, is everything okay? I mean, you don't normally sleep in class and it seems like you've been really tired lately. But also, I notice you're not talking to your friends in the hallway, you're hanging out by yourself. This is different from how you usually are. Is everything all right? And then depending on what they have to say, we have to kind of knock off our parenting instinct to fix it and actually do a really good job of listening and not being judgmental about what they're saying. Telling kids that everything's gonna be okay, well, we might have that understanding as adults that maybe it is gonna be okay. The problem for kids is right in that moment, it does not feel like it's gonna be okay. It doesn't feel like anything's gonna get any better. And when we say, hey, everything's going to be okay, what they hear is, you didn't hear a word I had to say. So we have to do good reflective listening. So somebody comes and says to you, hey, I feel really awful on Saturday mornings. Our response should be, it sounds like you feel really awful on Saturday mornings. It sounds simple. You don't need an advanced degree to do it. But it tells the kids, hey, I heard what you had to say, and did I get it right? They often give you big monologues. So we have to sort of summarize that. Did I get it right? And when they do, they're with you, and they're willing to say more about it. We need to let them know they're not alone. Things will get better in the sense that we're going to work on this together. And if I need to help find somebody for you that you can talk to about this, we'll work on that together. Kids don't know how to get that sort of help. We need to let them know there's treatments out there that are effective. So it's not just you've been struggling with this your whole time and you've been working really hard to get better, but nothing works. And you know what? I'm not sure anybody out there can really help us. The truth is there are people that can help. There are treatments that work, and we need to get these folks to those treatments. And lastly, the job of a parent, of course, is if you can't do the work yourself, get them to the help that they need.
Before moving on, one of the things, again, I wanted to highlight is that he mentioned not in a sense meeting the kids where they are, right? Not being, again, I keep saying not being judgmental, but that's what keeps coming up is for you not to be judgmental and meet them where they are. I think that's like very key. Again, this is just a resource that you guys can use. I'm not going to go over in detail. It just talks about teen and depression. It gives about different rates and different things that you can use. It's just another resource for you guys.
And to cut into that, it's really nice because it looks like it's a podcast as well, so you can listen to different topics on that area.
So lastly, I'm going to talk about CARES and SAS. So I'm going to begin with discussing what is SAS. So SAS is a screening, assessment, support service for crisis mental health service program for children and adolescents who are experiencing a psychiatric emergency. So SAS is an agency provides intensive mental health care services for eligible children and youth who may need hospitalization or community-based mental health care. So CARES, which stands for Crisis and Referral Entry Services, is a telephone response service to the SAS assessment, right? Crisis calls for children and youth in Illinois. So it says you should call CARES when a child is at risk from harming himself or harming others, or in a mental health crisis. So who can receive SAS services? Like I mentioned before, any child or youth in mental health crisis can receive the services. They do have to have a medical card, which is Medicaid. Even if your child is in crisis and they have private insurance, you have private insurance, I would still encourage you to call 911, which will take them to the hospital, and then they can receive further services. If a child is eligible for SAS, SAS will work with the guardian of the child for at least 90 days. If a child is hospitalized, SAS will join the hospital team to care for the child. And they will also help the hospital team to plan for the child's return. And they will provide you with mental health services once the child is at home. And this is just a line. So if you guys want to, if you don't have access or didn't have access, this is just a line. So if you are ever find yourself in that situation, you can call this number. And that is the end. This is Ms. Martinez information at the top, and then this is my direct information at the bottom. And I guess we can kind of open it up for questions, Ms. Martinez.
And thank you to our presenters, Ms. Martinez and Ms. Woodley. And thank you to all of you for joining us for this evening's Parent Academy. If you enjoyed tonight's webinar, you can view a schedule of all of our upcoming webinars on the SD 150 District website. And as always, you can view past webinars by going to the technology section of the district website. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.